So the unobserved mind is the ego. Not only if you think you're more than others, but also just in the sense that you have not looked at your thought process. You have not looked at your emotion and your emotional fluctuations. Now, if you've observed your mind, asked yourself questions about your thoughts and emotion, then you become more aware, if you will. And you're less likely to mentally suffer, to mentally have resistance within yourself, which causes mental suffering, anxiety, anger, stress. The ego is usually looked at in a certain kind of way where most people think that someone who has a big ego is someone who thinks more of themselves than others. But the true definition of ego, I think the word is actually an acronym. Ego, E standing for earth, G standing for guide, O standing for only. So earth, guide, only. Which ultimately means that you have not looked at within, you've only looked without, and have been guided by projections, thoughts, situations, and you have unobserved the inwardness of yourself. So ultimately, the ego is the unobserved of the inward nature of yourself, the unobserved thinking, the unobserved emotion, the unobserved fluctuations of feelings or emotions. It's completely unobserved. And so you may not even think you're more than others, but you may have these repetitive situations and thoughts that make you feel certain ways and so on, and you can become angry for certain situations because the unobserved mind does that. Now, if you've observed your mind and asked yourself questions about your thoughts and emotion, then you become more aware, if you will. You're less likely to mentally suffer, to mentally have resistance within yourself, which causes mental suffering, anxiety, anger, stress. So that was a good question, because usually it's kind of misinterpreted by most people. So they'll see someone, let's say in traffic, who seems to think that they can just do however they do in traffic, and maybe even flick you off if you you probably have all seen it if you drive a car, especially in Los Angeles here. So yes, of course, that's a certain way of egoic behavior, but at the same time, if you're commenting on that in a negative way, that is egoic behavior as well. It's unobserved, and it's probably has happened before where you've encountered a outrageous driver and you've done that, you've judged and commented on it negatively. What is wrong with this person, and so on, not recognizing that they have unobserved their way of thinking. They're being guided only through what they perceive. They haven't did the inward observation to where you have the choice to reconstruct how you think about things, reconstruct how you handle situations, you ultimately slow down and you become more aware of ultimately how you're making people feel, what you're doing, how you're doing it. So the unobserved mind is the ego. Not only if you think you're more than others, but also just in the sense that you have not looked at your thought process. You have not looked at your emotion and your emotional fluctuations. So it's egoic thinking and unconscious thinking, same thing, in a sense to usually unconscious, conventional way of explaining unconscious means that someone's out, they're unconscious. But spiritually speaking, when we say unconscious, it means that they have yet to look at, they're unaware of the fluctuations of thought and emotion and inner aliveness, because it's a vibration of energy that happens when you become resistant, anxious, stressed. They have yet to look at it, so it's unconscious or it's egoically driven, ultimately meaning the same thing. So, wonderful question. I think many people will be interested in understanding that more deeply and step out of the continuous stream of thinking and sometime watch it. Something happens, watch what your mind says about it. Don't add to it. Watch it. Then you become aware of the egoic reactions, the unconscious thinking. Thank you.